Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Guy. I'm the host today, guest host for The Mind Matters. And of course, you all are accustomed to seeing the great Ruth Baker here. And so we want to wish her well. Hope everything's working right in her life. Things are improving. And so she's allowed an organization called LEEP to have an opportunity to share with you an upcoming event that's planned for next weekend, and also to share some information and background about the organization itself. So today I have two guests with me. I have William Mayer and John Blyden. And so this will be somewhat of an informal interview process that we go through. So gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right.
Thank you for having us, Sam.
And what I want you to do is, as I ask you, various questions, feel free, if there's something that you kind of want to expand on, feel free to do that. But I guess the first thing I want to do today is find out, what is LEEP? What is LEEP? Because everybody's hearing about LEEP, seeing the letters L-E-E-P all over the place. And can you guys each kind of share with us your view of what LEEP is?
Okay. Well, I think I really want to refer to John, let him start off about how did we get to the point of even coming up with the letters that LEEP represent, the subject matter that it represents. So John, if you'll just bring us up to that point, then I can take it over from there.
Wow, okay, I just got to figure out how far back to go. Well, look, for those that don't know me, I'm John Blyden. I grew up on the east side of Wilmington. I grew up, doing some things as a young guy, going in the wrong direction. Wind up getting in trouble. Wind up having the opportunity, after my short stay at the Hilton, joining Local 199. And at that point, I was able to really change my life. I was able to have a job with dignity and respect. Not just a job, I was able to have a career. Back then, when the refineries was open, when they used to change over their car models, it provided a lot of work for the local unions. So, I often wondered, how come we don't have many opportunities like that now? So as years went on, I spent about 7 years in the field. I had the opportunity to become an organizer, a union organizer for the Labor's Eastern Region. So I was really excited. I was fighting for economic justice, fairness, workers' conditions, and etc. But I often wondered, how come we're not organizing in black communities? Because a lot of the focus was around organizing the immigrants, the undocumented workers. So it was 5 years into me organizing, I saw this video at the ribeye stand. It was about Martin Luther King, the whole movement around the sanitation workers. And I tell you, it left a profound effect on me, because I saw that was the blueprint. It was the churches. It was the young folks. It was the Rotary clubs. It was just normal folks all galvanizing around these sanitation workers that wanted some decency, respect, and a decent wage. I realized that was the blueprint. But I often wondered, how come you don't see that kind of movement now? So as I started moving in my organizing, going in different places, New York, New Jersey, 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to organize this new local called Local 55, a residential local. And I saw this opportunity as a way that I could lift up the community that I represent. Being a union rep, we represent all communities, but, since I'm someone that can actually make decisions, I made sure that the black community didn't get left out. What I started to realize was that there was a lot of hurdles. There was a lot of rules on the books that wasn't being enforced. Section 3 that states that 30% of the workers had to come from the community. I started seeing minority contractors not getting the access to capital, the support that they need to really thrive to hire our community. So I realized, man, this is a challenge. What I also realized was that union density, especially in construction, was going down. unions were being crushed in Delaware. Other places it may be going up, but in Delaware, it was going down. So that meant the workers' voice was going down. So lately, I started seeing some developments like the unions, the trade unions with Jimmy Marvellis as the head, started being really progressive and looking at policies where they can grow the unions, but also bring in African American workers. Because when you look at the construction industry, we're not there. So I think he had conversations with folks in the county, J Street, had this bill that would have ensured that on the library project, 30% of the workforce needed to come from that community and also be a part of apprenticeship programs. So what that would have done is you would have had to hire 30% from that area and not only hire them, but invest in them. When I found out that bill was being pulled, I was very concerned because I saw that as one of the solutions. But what was also troubling was that the community didn't weigh in. The community, it was like a tree falling in a forest. So I realized that, we have to do something, both labor and progressive folks from the community. We need to get together and figure out how we're going to solve these problems. Because right now in Delaware, we're one vote away from being a right-to-work state. And if you look at where right-to-work states are, the wages, the workers' voice are just gone. So that's how the LEEP started meeting. I started meeting with Will. Will introduced me to Sandra Smithers. We started meeting at Rose Hill. We started talking about some of the things we wanted that was important to the community. Also, I started talking about some things that was important to labor. We invited Komoko with this major port expansion, because I realized if this port expansion happens and we're not organized, if we don't have people skilled and trained, we're going to miss that boat. So we had Komoko at the table and some other labor leaders and started this process of LEAP.
Okay, now you said you wanted him to get it
Right.
started.
Okay.
And
So-
you're going to be the cleanup here.
Right. So just to chime in and stay on point with some of the things John addressed was that, first of all, my name is William Mayer, and I was born in Wilmington, Delaware, and I was raised in Trenton, New Jersey, but now I'm back here in Delaware. I spent a long time away in the military, and so now I'm here, and I always have had a black consciousness, and I always black awareness. I don't apologize for that. I mean, that's just who I am. So, being a small contractor, also having an IT background, one of the things that I need to make sure is that, I weigh in on things that affect me and my community. One of the things that I see is that, along lines what John was saying, if you do not, you can address and say, let's bring in some more jobs. And, it was a quote about 2 weeks in the paper, and it said, Delaware needs more low-paying jobs. And I mean, I find that kind of humorous and sad at the same time, is the fact that, if we want a young man to stop hanging on the corners doing illegal things, we can't just say, here's a job for $8 or $9 an hour, have a good life. We need to support them. They need to make a livable wage. They need to make sure they getting the training support from like labor unions and other types of agencies and institutions that's going to set them up for a future, a career, and not just something to say, here's a job and just throwing a Band-Aid on it, because they're not going to leave that situation unless that there's more benefit than just here's a job making $8, $9 an hour. Then, so in saying that, that's what galvanizes people like me and John and other community members together, because we know that it touches every fabric of our community when we lose institutions like Chrysler and General Motors and the port reduction, number of workers down at the port, and even the construction side where you have a reduced percentage of African Americans, even in the construction labor force, and a reduction in the number of black contractors or minority-owned contractors that's out here fielding these construction jobs. So, LEAP, labor, education, healthy communities, empowerment, and power. So those are like the letters that explain LEAP. So if we were to go through each one of those, basically what we encompass is that we should be able to touch every part of a community. And everyone should have a way to weigh in. We're not here, we didn't develop this to dictate policy, to do anything. We want to be a communication vehicle to make sure that our people are informed of opportunities, informed of new legislation coming down, informed of the aspects of here's a holistic approach to making a community healthy. When I think of things like the dropout rate for high schools, and I look at that and I compare that to the incarceration rate, and I compare that to the way that if you've got plumbers and electricians and you got nepotism going down the pike, and then we don't have a chance to compete. Our people, they're saying, you don't have a high school degree. I mean, there's many ways for them to turn you back on these professional trades if all that holistically approaches us as a people. Now, we have immigration, and I mean, that's okay, but it's kind of like what one man said. He said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. So, first we got to get Plymouth Rock off the top of us. Then we can start saying we're on equal ground. Because truly we have, been at a disadvantage for so long. If it wasn't so, we wouldn't have had the civil rights movement. If it wasn't so, our people, our inner cities are being, directly impacted from the lack of having paid, skilled jobs that are monitored, and also, in a way that, we're not just saying, oh yeah, well, just give them $8 an hour, $9 an hour. People need to have aspirations that they can have a middle class, that they can make it to the middle class. And until that happens, that's where LEAP comes in. We want to help push that. We want to have a dynamic forum of speakers that cover every aspect. We want the community to weigh in. We don't want the community to be sitting there idle and say, only these talkers can talk. No, you give us some feedback. Let's have some dialogue. Let's see what they're saying. And on the most parts, we'll find that, people say all kind of things, but I say to you to differ that if we gave a young African-American man a chance to make $25 an hour, that you would see something different. And not just say, oh, you work for 3 weeks, or you work for 2 weeks, you work for a month. No, that this guy's saying, I got a job, I'm going to work, I'm going to make money, I'm going to be there. So we can't just, we need to support to say, let the apprenticeships, let the programs that's going to compel us to another higher level, make sure they're there.
All right, now that's one heck of a background. And when I hear the word LEAP, even though I've noticed that it's L-E-E-P because, each letter has a role in the name, but just the word LEAP, it just makes you feel like it's an organization that's about some type of action. Like, LEAP may not actually be a word, L-E-E-P, but if it were a word, it would be a verb. It would be an action word. So I'm told that there's some action coming up this weekend. And so I want to make sure that our viewing audience has an idea as to what is going to happen. And would one of you or both of you kind of chime in on what's planned for this weekend in Wilmington, Delaware?
I'll start it off, especially since Will does a good job being a closer.
Okay.
There will be some action. We have some dynamic speakers that's coming in. You have some speakers as far as San Francisco, North Carolina, D.C., and then we have some powerful local speakers, you being one of them, that's going to come in and share some of the experiences and best practices. For example, Tanya Goburn, she's the newly appointed director of the National Black Workers Center. Let me talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The Black Workers Center is a spin-off between Black Lives Matter. So there was a movement, Black Workers Matter. So there was a professor out of California, Berkeley, Stephen Pitts, that did all the study and the research, and he started connecting with about 13 black worker centers throughout the country and gave them national affiliation. I was invited to speak on a panel. And what I was so impressed with that organization was that they're all over the country and they aspire to work with labor unions because they believe in lifting the boats of African American workers. Because if you ask me, if folks can get an opportunity to join a union, that's the quickest route to the middle class. What I also realized was in different places, they did not know how to connect with the labor union. Because you see, at some places, a lot of relationships are transactional. You do something for me, I do something for you, I see you again when I need you. Well, when I left that panel, I always thought that when we came back to Delaware, at some point, I wanted a black worker center to be established here in Delaware. And I actually wanted the worker center to comprise of community leaders and union leaders. So whereas though the union leaders, since they have the end track to their organizations, we can develop those pipelines directly within those union organizations in the worker center. So Tanya's coming in and she's going to introduce us to Delaware, introduce the national to Delaware, with the hope of, after this event, we're going to be establishing a black worker center where we get young folks involved, we get them political active, political educated, and also basically that's where the action is going to come in at. Then we have a gentleman called Eddie Ahn. He's an attorney from San Francisco. He has written policy throughout the country, policy that hasn't been opposed or that stood. He actually wrote the policy for the city of Newark, New Jersey, where there's a local hire construction policy that states 30% of all work that's going in the city that's residential, that gets subsidy, discounted housing, or etc., you have to have 30% from Newark. He actually goes so far that we're not even going to tell you where to look for them from. We're going to designate approved training programs so that entities coming in, they don't have to look, they're not finding people off the corner or getting them from Access Labor, that there'll be a pool of city residents already skilled and trained. So we wanted Eddie Ahn to come here because there's been some policy on the books here in Wilmington. Right before the election, it was put on the docks, but after the election, it disappeared. So I think now we want to bring in the experts to get everybody educated about the impact that these kind of policies could have in the community. So hopefully we can organize around this and get our folks in council and the mayor and even in the county moving in that direction. And the last speaker we have, we got kind of a radical individual. His name Bill Fletcher. He's brilliant. He was co-chair of Trans Africa with Danny Glover. Graduated from Harvard, a union organizer. He's a union supporter, but he has no problem telling union what they need to do better. So he's going to come in as a keynote speaker to basically tie this whole event together. We actually have an African-American sister, I love her, Gwen Motley. I'm actually engaging her to start coming in Delaware to do some work. She's going to tell her story, but her story is dynamic. I have a working relationship with her in other places where 80% of our workforce is African-American. You know, it flows from the top. So this will be her introduction to the state of Delaware, because ultimately from this, I want people to start seeing some results. Like Will said, minority contractors, they need so much support. And a lot of times, you know, you can't get folks engaged if they're not earning as well. So as I'm talking about the apprenticeship program for workers, I want to be able to, from this, working with probably BMC, develop on-the-job training for our contractors, because at the end of the day, if they need a $5 million bond and they don't have it, they can't get on the job. So we're going to take care of that working with this minority contractor.
Okay, so now when and where will this event be held?
Right, so May 6th at the ILA Longshoremen's Hall, 200 Claymont Street, Wilmington, Delaware, 19801, from 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll be serving a light breakfast and a light lunch. I mean, that's the when and where. And wanted to just chime in on a couple things
Sure.
that John hit home on. One thing about the state of Delaware in itself, in like the last 2 months, I remember reading a report about it fell in this diversity plan, basically a lack of a diversity plan. So when we look at the holistic approach of, not only do we have a lack of diversity in the city, in the county, but in the state as a whole. So we cannot just address and say, you know, so these are the type of things we need to communicate to our communities and say, we have a problem at the state level, we got a problem at the city level, we got a problem at the county level. That means holistically, the whole state of Delaware has an issue, and we need to address it holistically. So we want to make sure that communication flows. When we know about new legislation, we know about things that maybe like the Watchman knows, maybe we need to we need to make sure that that's communicated to the community, not just one person, but use it as a voice and say, you know, we approve this message, because basically the facts are the facts. Let them lie where they lie, let them fall where they fall. But we perish for the lack of communication. There's a lot of programs, a lot of opportunities that are not getting out to the community for whatever reason, and we just need to make sure that happens. So LEAP also has that fundamental challenge of empowering and communicating to the community, basically educating the community through communication. So we have to develop that communication vehicle. And that's what this platform is. So not only the speakers that John spoke of, but of course we're going to have some locals. I think Eugene Young is going to say some words. Sam Guy is going to say some words.
Sandra Smithers.
Miss Sandra Smithers, who's going to be coming on in the next 10 minutes, going to say some words.
Morton.
Reverend Morton is going to say some words. So, I mean, there's a list of other local entities, and we open for a platform for discussion. And it's a panelist, except for the guest speakers. Basically, it's a panel question and answer type of format.
Okay, so we want everybody out there to mark it on your calendar now. Grab your cell phone and just mark on there Saturday, 9:30 to 2 at the Longshoremen's Hall over in Southbridge.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
And you want to make sure that you're there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a brief break, and then we'll be back to talk to you some more about LEAP and the upcoming activities. Okay, again, everyone, we want to welcome you to the Mind Matters. We want to thank Ruth Baker, who's not here with us today. We hope she's feeling better. Things are improving in her life, but she's providing an opportunity for representatives of LEAP to come in today and talk about an upcoming event that's scheduled this weekend on Saturday at 9:30 over at the ILA headquarters in Southbridge, and also to share with you what LEAP is. So earlier you heard from John and you heard from William, and they kind of gave you their overview as to what LEAP is. And now we have an additional person who's part of the core infrastructure of LEAP that's joined us, and that's Sandra Smithers. Want to welcome you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. And what we want to do is we want to kind of go back and give you an opportunity also to kind of explain what LEAP is, because it's a vision from a lot of people who are part of it. And so could you kind of expound on what is LEAP?
I think it is a vision. I think it's unique. I think it's one of those kinds of organizations that have come together as a result of all of us realizing that our community for too long has been segmented and fragmented, and many of us have the same idea, but we're working in different silos, so we don't communicate with each other. Our community is not just a monolithic kind of thing, but it is a holistic organic kind of community where people are doing different things, have different interests, have different struggles, and we need to begin to, as a community, address some of those struggles. And that means that we have to pull in all segments of the community. We have to pull in the nonprofits and the community residents and labor and all of the sectors of the community that can help to resolve some of our problems. We have a problem of unemployment and underemployment, especially among our young people. We have a problem of unhealthy communities as a result of a lot of issues. Some of it has to do with air pollution and soil pollution. Some of it has to do with the kind of foods that we have available to us to eat. The fact that many of us live in food deserts so that we don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And it's just all of a myriad of problems. Our educational system is not serving our young people well. Those are problems and issues that we all have to address. And I think all of the members of LEAP had some idea of how to resolve some of these problems. Nobody could do it alone. So the uniqueness of this group is that we have come together to begin to address some of the problems that are in our community. And in doing so, each person has been asked to lay their ego aside, lay their special interests aside, and look at what is good and wholesome for our community. And going forward, this forum will allow us to have the community's input, to have the community help us to forge a path forward that's going to be productive for everyone. And essentially, that's what we've been about.
Okay. So, given what you've just said, can you also kind of chime in with respect to how what you said ties into the events planned for this weekend?
Well, this weekend, we're going to have, as they've probably mentioned, speakers, and we're going to have an opportunity for those speakers to address pertinent issues that affect our community. We are also going to have an opportunity for the community to ask questions and get answers if there are answers available at that time, and also to make comments, because the only way any organization can be effective is that we have to have the input of the community. And there is nobody in the community that is more or less important. Everybody's voice has to be heard, and this is, I think, a unique opportunity for that to happen. They probably have mentioned we will have food so that those who come early can have an opportunity to have some light breakfast, and those who come later, hopefully people will stay for the entire time, but we'll also be providing some lunch. So it should be a very productive day. We've worked very hard to make it informative for the community and to allow us to interact with all sectors of the community.
Okay. Now, one of the big issues when it comes to jobs, I know, in Delaware has to do with the Port of Wilmington. So, is there any kind of connection that we can expect if we're talking about jobs and the workforce and labor and things of that nature? Can we expect to hear anything about port related issues?
Absolutely. I don't know if we mentioned it earlier, but Komoko is on a panel, and he'll be updating the community on where we stand with the port expansion. And what's also interesting when we're talking about jobs, I've been privy to conversations between Komoko and the head of the AFL-CIO, Jimmy Marvellis. And Komoko has stated that, look, I want to make sure that African Americans receive the opportunities that this port expansion is going to bear fruit of. So I see this event as, one, giving us information, but also connecting the dots. So when this port project starts, we have people ready to go. We identify all the positions, and then we can then start feeding people to that project. So that's one of the functions I see of LEAP in the future. But first, we need to know whether or not this thing is moving smooth, and if not, what can the community do to make sure this port expansion goes as planned?
Okay. Now, in this world that we live in, a lot of times we hear about events that are going to take place. Okay. And so sometimes people want to know, well, what's going to happen after the event? But what I know is sometimes you got to let the event take place when it involves community comment, community questions, because that may inform you as to the specific direction you're moving into next, right? So does this event in any way lead to at least something happening after the fact? Is that part of the plan for something to happen after Saturday? Or is the event an event where after the event's over, everything's over?
Well, you know, too often that's the case. We have the event, people vent, people talk about the problems, and then everyone goes home. That's one of the issues that we also are attempting to address. There will be a follow-up forum. There will be action on concerns that the community has, and the community will be notified as to the outcomes of certain actions that'll be taken. As I said, LEAP is an organic organization. It's growing, it's developing, and the whole purpose is to serve the community, to make life better. Speaking of the port expansion, we realize that one of the leading concerns and issues in our community is the fact that there are no jobs. Underpinning the fact that there is crime, there's drugs, there are all kinds of antisocial behavior, a lot of that stems from the lack of employment. And so, you know, you tie that into the port expansion, and you realize that that can have a positive impact in so many areas of our community. So, you know, the port is not separate from all of the other issues that we're going to be dealing with. And it's important that Kamoko is there because he has the first-hand information, and he can explain to young people what's going on and what they perhaps should be thinking about in terms of their future and a possible future with the port.
Okay, did either one of you also want to chime in on after the event is over?
Yes, I would say like my 4 pillars are synergy, collaboration, effectiveness, and efficiency. And so in saying that, we definitely need to take the output from the meeting, the forum, and make sure that on the next forum that those things that are given priority are discussed and given a platform and given a voice for the next forum, along with making sure that LEAP Delaware Forward also is keeping on track of their mission, our goals that we set internally. So we don't want to lose track of that, because I'm sure that the collaboration that John has, as far as we know that we need to be doing workforce development and project development, pushing forward some things that's going to bring in employment, so that we're not just sitting there saying we're waiting on the port.
Right.
You know, we don't want to be in that type of area either. We want to make sure that we're pushing some things forward. And I'm more of a sustainable type person, the healthy communities and sustainability, which I'm sure Ms. Smithers knows that that's all I ever talk about. I want solar greenhouses, and I want solar panel projects. I feel that a solar panel project of the right magnitude can give the community something that they haven't had since 40 acres and a mule, basically to say it produces income for the community without someone saying, and this is what you have to do with it. You know, the community can decide what they want to do with what it produces. And so we will have impact on the environment. We have impact on empowering the younger people to see a new dynamic. We have impact on using skilled workers apprenticeship programs so they get into that field, and it's a field that only makes sense. And so does solar greenhouse. I mean, because I think that some of the things that we have going on with our children is from eating a bunch of sugar and starches and not having enough physical activity, and so that brought about a whole bunch of things that they diagnosed and misdiagnosed and called them other things, but really was the impact of that. So yes, we definitely going to be taking things and moving forward with it, but we just not just sitting there waiting on things to drop out the sky.
You know, as you talk about apprenticeship, I don't know if you realize in the county there was a ordinance where they was going to eliminate apprenticeship opportunities, will basically raise the thresholds basically where you wouldn't need apprenticeship programs for $1 million and under. And what was interesting, we started having conversations about this, and we was able to weigh in to the point that the final decision has been pushed off till June. So that's going to be something that I think LEEP's going to be involved with. I believe we're going to be at the table to make sure whatever ordinance is utilized, it benefits the community we represent. So there's plenty of work to do, but I think if the community is not informed and empowered, how can we mobilize?
Okay, what I'd like to do is I want to make sure each one of you gets an opportunity as we're kind of wrapping up the show to comment on anything else that you feel is important. But before we do that, would somebody just quickly go over when the event is, what the event is, who's invited, you know, all of those basics, what time, so that folks have one more opportunity to get that information.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll start off with it. Okay. John is such a good closer, as he said about me earlier. Okay, so May 6th, I'm going to keep saying May 6th, 2017, ILA Longshoremen's Hall, 200 Claymont Street, South Claymont Street, Wilmington, Delaware, 19802. In that magnitude from 9:30 to 2 p.m., we will have light breakfast, light lunch, plenty of water. The dialogue, you know, basically this is a forum with panelists, but also open floor time, open discussions where you can make comments, give feedback. And John, anything else, Ms. Smithers, anything else you want to add on to that?
Well, I think that it's going to be a forum where people are going to hear about things that they didn't know about. And this is an opportunity to become more informed about the kinds of issues that impact the community on a personal level and also on a community level. So I think that in designing the agenda, the program for the day, I know I've learned an awful lot. So each of us has. And I think that if the community comes out, they will be surprised at how much they'll learn, what they'll go away with, and how energized they will be at the end of the whole thing.
Did you want to
Yeah,
chime
one
in?
more thing I want to add. We have gotten a lot of response from elected officials. They're also interested in coming and also learning. I mean, when you start talking about local hire policy, look, we're going to have the guy in the room that drafted this policy throughout the country. So I know there's a few council people and county council people that's going to be very interested to hear what he has to say. Because, you know, one of the biggest things is, you know, they're always told, will this get challenged? So I think this is going to provide educational opportunities for working people as well as elected officials, and that's important.
And one other thing, Sam, we'll also have voter registrars there to register people to vote, because that's one very important pillar of our community that has been underutilized. And as a result, we've found ourselves many times in compromised positions that we didn't realize we were going to be in because we didn't understand the importance of the vote. So that's a consideration, and that's something that's important that we're going to have.
Yeah, one more thing about donations. And you can go to Leap Delaware Forward on Facebook or find us on Eventbrite. You can make donations electronically. Also located is the information to send it in brick and mortar method by mail or by phone call. So we do take donations, and if you make a big enough donation sponsorship, you will be on our event flyer. So just want to put that out there also.
Okay, what's that location on the internet again?
Leap Delaware Forward.
Leap Delaware Forward. Okay, so it's always helpful to have additional sponsors. Now, today, I'm in the role of interviewing the guests from LEEP. So I know a lot of you are out there saying, well, Sam, you actually didn't say anything. You're asking a bunch of questions. And I'm kind of staying in my lane, but I have to make a comment, and this is the comment that I'm going to make. I'm familiar with the names from a national level of the people that are being brought here. So I just want you all to know that these people are going to show up here with some fantastic information. And one of the local problems we have in Delaware is a lot of time we don't get a lot of exposure to people from other places that are particularly interested in what's happening from the people's perspective, how to empower people. So this is critical. Plus the local people that are involved, that are part of LEEP, okay? The group of people here are some, and there's others. And what you have is a group of people whose orientation is toward improving the plight of people. And so the program that's scheduled for Saturday is oriented toward how to strengthen the community, how to improve the community on a multitude of dimensions. So I encourage you to come check out what's taking place with LEEP. So as we close out, I want to give at least each one of you all one more opportunity to kind of help promote the event and anything else you want to share about LEEP in whatever order you choose.
Ms. Smithers, you want to go first?
Well, I just want to take the opportunity to invite everyone to come out. We need everyone in our community. We need seniors, we need middle age, and we need young people. We especially need young people because they are our future. And we need to do whatever we can to support them and to ensure that their future is brighter, because if theirs is brighter, so is ours.
Thank you. That was good. Well, I want to just say, please come out. Please get empowered. Be ready to roll up your sleeve. And there's one saying that I think is relevant to this. United we bargain, divided we beg. Please come out.
That was good. Yeah, please come out May 6th at 9:30 to Longshoremen Hall. Also would like to leave you with just a nugget of thought. We have a lot of construction that's already started in the city of Wilmington. It's about to start, some major projects. And whether or not they government funded or not, because we have public officials that are engaging conversation concerning these projects, I feel as though those same government officials should be making sure that representation from the community is engaged, because there's no need of having a visitors bureau when your inner city's in plight from the lack of resources. So, let's make this a holistic approach, and I'm asking the community to make sure that they keep that as a nugget, so that maybe on the next forum that might be like one of our hottest topics.
Okay, now I have a question for you, because when you're involved with organizations or activities, there's some activities or organizations where it's just, and I've been to some of your meetings, and there's a energy level and an excitement level. And so could each one of you kind of explain, I guess from your own perspective, what is it about LEEP and what LEEP's trying to do that causes you to have that excitement that I've seen in you all at these meetings? So each one of you, I'm sure, has a different answer. But what is it about what's going on there that causes that excitement? What is it in it that makes you, come to the table consistently and want to be there?
Well, I'm just going to say, for me, I know that each one of the members of LEEP in our core competency that they're very capable, intelligent people. And me having the nature I have, like being a little bull and a pastor running around, I know that in order for me to compel them, I have to represent enough evidence and enough action that they are engaged with me to say, hey, I like that, let's get it moving, because in their self they have that energy. So to do it as a group, I know that it takes that type of attributes. And so I know that we're going to do some things, we're going to push some things forward, you know, that hopefully the community engages with and understands that, you know, we're not just the type of people just sitting there smacking our gums. You know, something's going to happen. You know, that's what I want to say.
I'll say. The one thing I think that's outstanding about the group is that everyone came with a vision. And it's very interesting when you attempt to get leaders to work together, because they're all accustomed to being leaders, but they all are leaders because they have a level of energy that they can energize others. So the exciting thing about LEAP is that we have those leaders together, and harnessing that energy is another thing. Getting them all to move lockstep is very interesting, but it also gives us an opportunity to have a holistic overview of what the problems are, because everybody has their own specific idea. And it's their willingness to work together that has caused this group to move forward.
Okay.
Well, Sandra's spoken lightly. She's been the referee at many of our, our meetings. I got to say, Sandra and Dinah Russ has been very good at keeping things level, but I think it's necessary because we learn from each other. The fact that, you know, I'm working with labor to try to see this through. So there's often challenges in terms of, you know, how labor want to operate in community involvement. And the community is saying, well, how we would allow labor to operate. So we've been able to have those discussions and work in a place that's comfortable, that we can agree with, and also I think going to develop, well, I know going to develop a level of sustainability. This is very challenging, you know, labor work, because I mean, most of the labor, they're not even in Wilmington, really. When you talk about the trades, I'm talking about construction trades. They don't really see how it really connects. So having these conversations and being able to present the win-win, and I'm seeing how folks are coming closer together, it makes the meetings we have, and sometimes 3-hour meetings, 3.5-hour meetings, make them worthwhile, because after that meeting, we feel, well, we accomplished something. It might have took long, but we accomplished. And also understanding that everybody at this table, they're willing to roll up their sleeves and put some work in. This is not a coffee and donut. We're going to hide behind the scenes. We got a lot of movers and shakers. And basically at this event, we want to light the fire of some folks that want to be active, because there's a lot of things happening in our city and our county. And, you know, I don't want to say it. I mean, people are saying gentrification. But I tell you what, if they're going to be survivors, it's going to be because of the work we're doing here.
All right, LEAP, L-E-E-P. If you see that on anything, any kind of document, anything coming across the internet or Facebook, make sure you look at it. Saturday, everybody needs to be there. We're going to wrap up 9:30 Saturday morning, this Saturday.
This Saturday.
That's May the 6th, right? May the 6th is this Saturday. We need everybody to show up. It's going to be very informative. We want to thank all of you for coming out this morning, and the people who are not here today for the work that you do on behalf of the community. So we're going to wrap up this show, but we'll see you Saturday morning at the Longshoremen's Hall. Sam Guy signing out with LEAP.